Caleb Hart had learned long ago that silence could be louder than any crowd. And as his truck groaned up the narrow mountain road, pine branches scraping against the doors like warning fingers, that silence wrapped around him tighter than the cold November air. He was a rancher by trade, a man whose life had been measured in seasons, fences, and cattle births, not in surprises, and yet here he was, heading toward one. The cabin had been a reckless purchase, bought sight unseen. At an estate auction after 3, whiskeys and a long night staring at the empty chair across his kitchen table, the one that had once belonged to his wife before cancer took her voice, then her breath, then her place in the world. The listing had been sparse. Remote mountain cabin. No utilities guaranteed as is. That should have stopped him. Instead, it felt like a challenge. Caleb didn't need comfort. He needed distance from memories, from pitying looks in town, from the ache that came every evening when the sun dipped and no one was there to comment on the color of the sky. So he bought it, signed the papers without ever seeing a photograph, and told himself that isolation would be a cure. As the truck finally reached the clearing, the cabin emerged from the trees like something half forgotten by time. Logs darkened with age, roof sagging slightly, smoke curling lazily from a stone chimney. Caleb frowned. Smoke, that wasn't right. The place was supposed to be abandoned. He cut the engine, the sudden quiet making his ears ring, and stepped out, hand instinctively resting near the old revolver at his hip, not because he expected trouble, but because a man alone learns habits that are hard to break. The air smelled of burning pine and something else. Coffee, maybe. His boots crunched on frost as he approached the door, noticing details that didn't fit abandonment, fresh footprints, a stack of chopped firewood neatly arranged, a curtain fluttering behind the dusty window. His pulse picked up, a mix of irritation and unease. Squatters were a problem out here. He knocked once hard. Nothing. He knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Finally, he tested the handle. Unlocked. The door creaked open, and warmth spilled out to meet him, carrying with it the scent of stew and clean linen. "Hello?" he called, voice rough from disuse. That was when he saw her. She stood near the small kitchen table, frozen mid-motion, a wooden spoon clutched in her hand like a shield. She was beautiful in a way that didn't feel intentional. Long dark hair pulled into a messy braid, eyes wide and sharp like a deer's, face pale but strong, as if life had taught her to endure more than it should have. She wore an oversized sweater and worn jeans, nothing remarkable, and yet the sight of her knocked the breath from his chest harder than any memory ever had. For a long moment they simply stared at each other, two strangers caught in the same mistake. "You're early," she said finally, her voice steady, despite the tension humming beneath it. Caleb blinked. "Early for what?" She swallowed, eyes flicking toward the door behind him as if measuring distance. "For whoever they sold this place to." The words hit him like cold water. "They sold it to me," he said slowly. "I'm Caleb Hart. I own this cabin." Her grip tightened on the spoon, knuckles whitening. "That's not possible." "I've got the papers in my truck," he replied. This place was listed empty. A bitter smile tugged at her lips. "It rarely is." Silence stretched again, thicker now, filled with questions neither of them were ready to voice. Caleb took in the room, the lived-in details he'd missed before. A stack of books by the fireplace, a patched quilt folded carefully on the couch, dried herbs hanging from a beam. This wasn't a squatter's hideout. This was a home. "How long have you been here?" he asked softer now. She hesitated, then sighed, the tension draining just enough to reveal exhaustion beneath it. 3 years. That made his head spin. 3 years? "I didn't steal it," she said quickly. "I had permission. From the old owner. He said I could stay as long as I needed." Caleb cursed under his breath. Estate auctions were ruthless. Verbal agreements died with their makers. "He never mentioned you." "Of course he didn't," she replied quietly. "I was never supposed to matter." Something in her tone struck a chord deep in his chest, a familiar echo of being erased by circumstance. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his graying hair. "Look," he said, "I didn't drive 4 hours up a mountain to throw someone out into the cold. But I did buy this place, fair and square." Her eyes softened just a fraction. "I know." She set the spoon down carefully, as if afraid sudden movements might shatter the fragile truce forming between them. "I just didn't think this day would actually come." Caleb studied her, noticing the faint scar along her wrist, the way she stood with her weight balanced like someone used to running. "What's your name?" "Lena," she answered. Lena Brooks. The name lingered between them. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows, reminding them both that the mountain cared little for ownership disputes. "It's getting dark," Caleb said at last. "Roads'll ice over soon. I'll head back down and figure this out in the morning." Relief flashed across her face, quickly masked by caution. "You'd do that?" He shrugged. "I've slept in worse places than my truck." She hesitated, then nodded toward the table. "I made too much stew." He should have said no. Should have kept distance. Instead, he found himself sitting across from her minutes later, the warmth of the cabin seeping into bones that had been cold for far longer than the drive up the mountain. They ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was the kind of quiet that felt earned, shared. As he rose to leave, Lena spoke again. "Thank you," she said, "for not making this harder than it already is." Caleb paused at the door, looking back at the cabin that had already given him more than he'd bargained for. "This place," he said, "has a habit of surprising people." Outside, as he settled into his truck and glanced once more at the glow of light in the window, he felt something stir inside him, something dangerous and hopeful. Whatever secrets Lena Brooks was hiding, whatever story had led her to live alone on a mountain for 3 years, he knew one thing with unsettling certainty. Buying that cabin sight unseen had just changed his life. And if you want to know what happens next, why Lena was really there, what she was running from, and how 2 broken lives collide in ways neither expected, make sure you subscribe, because this story is only just beginning.